Hello, I'm Kilpo1, and welcome to the Forever Winter July patch video, where I'll go over this month's patch of the game, covering the patch notes and things unsaid in them. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. Alright, so we have two new units in the game, well, one more being a reskin than a new unit. The first being the Europa Stiltwalker, a large, multi-legged kind of war machine for Europa, and I was unfortunately unable to get any additional footage for this, as it's quite a rare Europa unit. At least I wasn't able to get it to spawn within 2 hours of trying. It probably is behind the Theater of War mechanic, so it only will spawn if Europa has a certain percentage of control, I would imagine. Other than that, it's a large war machine with lots of different rocket pods on it and a chain machine gun on its I guess chin is what you would call it. And apparently, according to the patch notes, these weapons can be knocked off and looted, which is a cool mechanic. I'm not entirely sure if it's killable, maybe with the railgun. We also have a new water thief drone, and this water thief drone is essentially just a Europa regular drone that's been reskinned and has a few additional vanity parts on it. Other than that, it functions the exact same. It's friendly only to the water thieves. It will shoot anyone else. And it's got just an invisible gun that will shoot bullets at anyone nearby. Alright, now moving over to the biggest feature of the patch, which would be the new map, Downtown Los Angeles. So, Downtown Los Angeles, the last map that wasn't in the game yet, at least for now. It is a large urban metropolis. The way I would phrase it is if you took the entire playable area of Mesa and then added in streets and skyscrapers and verticality everywhere. That's essentially the size of map you would get with Downtown Los Angeles. And its large, sprawling nature does do a good job of making it feel bigger than it actually really is, despite it actually being a pretty sizable map. There's not really any complaints I would say in regard to its size, at least personally for me. And the main selling point of this map is kind of seeing all of the skyscrapers around, all of the verticality, all of the streets and the rubbles and the ruins. It is probably the best map so far for having like knickknacks around the map itself, like signposts and signs and so on and so forth, to really kind of give you additional lore about the setting, which is really cool. However, my biggest complaint about Downtown Los Angeles is it's kind of what we've been experiencing with a lot of the maps recently. These really breathtaking visuals with really out any substance beneath them, if that makes sense. Take, for example, this will be the worst offender, Stairway, right? Stairway feels like a map where you're just supposed to move through it. You find the occasional container or loose item you loot, but it feels like a map you're not trying to visit and do something on. It feels like a map you're just moving through. And that's kind of how downtown feels, right? It feels like you're moving through downtown, but you're not trying to go anywhere downtown. There's not really any places to thoroughly explore. I was kind of let down, for example, when I saw the police station. I was like, oh shit, cool, that looks amazing. Is there like a way to get inside? Is there a basement? Is there like a way to see what a police station for old Europa looks like? No, it's just some vanities on top of a building. And that was ultimately a letdown, considering it's the big issue with a lot of the newer maps. Frozen Swamp was the last map that didn't have this issue, so it's been a while. And I really am hoping that maybe they can learn from Frozen Swamp and maybe amend some of these older maps, or I guess this map too, with actual locations to visit. Otherwise, I mean, they look great, but they're just, why go here? There's nothing to do here other than just walk around the streets and then leave. Like, it's a cool vibe, but that's really about it. Anyway, moving on to our next patch notes. Alright, characters and weapons. Now, this is probably the better part of the patch for me. Overall, this is a massive W in my book. The first being player movement improvements, and I don't want to say this is the mechanics of movement. It is ever so slightly, but it's more about the feeling of movement in the game currently. and it overall looks and just feels better. There is still the occasional piece of terrain that you'll walk into or fall into and so on and so forth. That will take time to fix, but this patch has done a good job of reworking the base movement system, not by a large measure, but enough to the point where it feels polished, at least to a high enough level where I think it's passable. On top of that, you have the sense of weight has been improved, character speed, acceleration, and jumping. They join together to make movement better, and not mechanically, just feeling wise, which I think is a very important direction for this game, right? It's not, we don't need like expansive, very complicated systems, right? But you do need systems that feel right to the setting, and the movement feels a lot better now in that regard. Weapon reload rate tweaks. I didn't really notice this, but I imagine that's probably a good thing. If we're not noticing changes like this, it probably means it's smoother. So overall, just W. Pistol swap is faster. This is a nice little feature. I mean, I don't use pistols. There's like almost no shot this will actually make pistols viable, but at least it's doing something. So I gotta reward that at least. The weapons have, yeah, we'll get into that in a second. Button mashing. So they have added in the ability to button mash to help you recover from getting like knocked down or staggered, or if you're trying to mantle faster. I loosely timed this, not scientific in any means, but like I went from like a 5.5 second knockdown to like 4.5, I think. I didn't really do a very thorough job investigating this, so, but I also didn't really feel it all that much either. I in a way kind of feel like it should just, if you want to include a feature like that, just make it a QuickTime event. Or not like a literal QuickTime event, but like, you know, like the Gears of War reload bar. There needs to be some UI element to make players feel like this is actually doing something. Otherwise, you have to make it comically fast. Like, players aren't going to notice like a 20% reduction or speed improvement in their ability to stand up from getting insta-locked or getting knocked down, right? So actually having like a UI indicator or like a Gears of War weapon reload might help out in that regard. New weapon attachments. Now, I'm sure plenty of people have weapon attachments or silencers for guns they wanted to have them, and so now they're happy. However, I come from the personal standpoint of I want diverse, interesting guns that offer trade-offs, and adding more silencers to guns that already didn't have them makes everything more the same. And personally, I hate it, but you know, I don't see it changing. It also adds more weapon attachments to the ever so bloated weapon attachment pool. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have much positive to say about it, so I'll just move on to the next segment, but yeah, I'm not the biggest fan. All right, performance improvements. These are all just relatively good things. They've been working on performance every single patch. I mean, they've been doing a great job in this regard. The game feels smoother than ever. There are still some bugs around this since they've detached the tick rate from enemy infantry. Last patch, you can still occasionally have infantry that go like Mach 1. They go super fast, and that's just a bug that needs to be fixed. Other than that, they've added new user settings. Essentially, once you launch the game now as a new user, the game will essentially try and give you appropriate graphic settings depending on your rig, so that when you launch into a game, it will hopefully work. They've also improved animation performance and essentially smoother animations. At this point, animations don't seem to have any issues at range anymore, which is a huge W. It was always off-putting seeing a slideshow at range of units. They've added FSR in 3 and AMD frame gen, so just AMD support essentially for features, which is huge. It's always nice for those features to get added to the game. They've added in motion blur and intensity sliders for motion blur. I'm personally not a big fan of motion blur, so I just turned it off immediately, but for those who like it, it's there now. DLSS fixes and other miscellaneous fixes to performance, just a kind of a long list of just various fixes here and there. I've heard reports that DLSS still has issues, but you know, you're welcome to try it out. You know, let me know down in the comments below. The other big thing I didn't note here is that, and not in the downtown section either, downtown is currently having issues with its shaders probably. I'm not exactly sure if it's the shaders, but it really feels like the shaders. Essentially, during most of the segments of that map, there will be instances where the game will just chug for a second or two and then recover. And no matter how much you play the map currently, it seems to have that issue. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but it feels like a shader issue. It looks like a shader issue, so it's probably that. So that will just take time for them to fix. All right, moving on to our last segment. All right, so content and other fixes. One big aspect here is the continuation of Lordos's quest line. Essentially, for unfamiliar, we're in this process of repairing Lordos to get him back on his feet. I'm not sure if this is the last step yet, but this is a continuation of the last patch, where we now have a few more quests to fetch components for Lordos and help repair him. And I like the quest line, it's cool. It actually, like, out of all of the quests we have so far in the game, it's one of the more interesting ones. It still ultimately is just a fetch quest, but at least the context of the quest is interesting. They have added in large enemy staggering, essentially unkillable staggerings. So like the Grabber, Orgamex, so on and so forth. If you deliver them enough sustained firepower like grenade launchers or shotguns over periods of time, they will stagger, giving you a window to run away, escape, try and just get some distance. I've had some issues doing this consistently. It will work once, and it seems like the actual cooldown for this feature is super long, so you can only use it ever so sparingly, but it does work. And it's ultimately nice. I can't fault them for it. I do hope we get some more interesting ways of dealing with unkillables other than weapons. For an alleged anti-shooter, our only way of interacting with the environment and through to enemies, essentially, right, is via weapons, right? And so I'm just hoping that we see other ways of actually problem solve other than just shooting things. The AI soldiers react to shooting now, as opposed to just kind of being Terminators. Essentially what this means is when you see enemies fight now, they actually react to shooting their weapons. They actually have some actual like shake to them. They're not just rigid. So it looks like the units are actually like a bit more grounded now and realistic, which is super nice. They don't feel as rigid and weird as they were before. Next up, the AI will no longer take pot shots at players they're unaware of. This isn't fixed. I'm not sure if I would even want to say it's better. I have been shot at multiple times by enemies who were not aware of me this patch already. So I'm glad they're looking into this. This is a massive W in my book that they're looking into this and trying to fix this, but it's not fixed. It is still a very big issue in the game, and yeah, it's a giant bug with the AI system in the game currently, and the fact that it's deep-rooted into the system does not inspire confidence. But anyway, moving on. AI improvements for pathing toward threats. So my understanding of this now is, in prior instances of the game, when enemies were trying to head to a location to investigate like a sound, or maybe they saw something, they kind of would just walk in the conga line, and it would make them very comical just to gun them all down, right? And with this improvement, they should at least react a little bit better to create space and not just walk in a conga line, which is nice. Recruit changes. This was in the patch notes. I tried recruits out briefly. I did not see any changes at all, so I can't comment on this. If you see any changes with recruits, let me know. There's only so much you can do to contextualize one button press to a full command suite for friendly infantry. So I'm not really sure what else they could do. They honestly want to like really flesh out the system. But like, yeah, I didn't see any changes with this at all. All right, so that's the July patch. The biggest thing I want to say is that they've really adopted this monthly patch cadence, and they labeled this patch 0.7, and I believe the last patch was labeled 0.6. So it seems that if 1.0, like 1.0 is supposed to come out this year, it seems like probably end of October, and that would match the early access page. So we have 3 more patches coming. I'm hesitant to believe we're on a path to 1.0 in 3 months, but that's just me personally. I would love to be wrong, but I'm hesitant to believe in 3 months we can get progression, end game, like a full Ender's expand. Like I'm trying to think of everything they might be adding in 3 months, or like what I would want to see added before 1.0, and I just can't see it in 3 months. And like, once again, it might not be 3 months. This is just me spitballing here, but it really feels like they're really pushing for 1.0 this year, and I feel like that's a huge mistake. You only get to go 1.0 once, and they're never beating the allegations if they push to 1.0 this year, I think, of essentially being a fairly superficial game, in my opinion. But other than that, I mean, the patch overall is good. I just do not see 3 patches from now being enough. But anyway, that's it for today, everyone. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the patch down below, and your thoughts on the game down below in the comments. I have a Discord now. Come join, come hang out, come talk to me, come talk to us. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Take it easy, everyone, and I will see you guys later.